Hi everyone, my name's Liam, I'm a cartoon character, and today I wanted to talk about the different kinds of jobs found in the animation industry. I'll go through the jobs in the order that they become relevant, starting from the initial concept all the way to the final edit. There are plenty of easily accessible tools for these jobs that I'll bring up as we go through if you wanted to experiment with them yourself. Let's begin with the pre-production phase of animation, starting with concept art. The concept artist works out the style of the animation. They do this by creating basic designs for the characters and the environments. There are many different ways to create concept art. It can range from simple sketches to fully rendered paintings or even stitched together stock images. The main purpose of concept art is to invoke a design sensibility, not to nail down specific details. For smaller projects you might not have a dedicated concept artist. Sometimes the concept art is done by one of the other designers or even by the director themselves. If you enjoy experimenting with different mediums and art styles, then maybe give concept art a try. If you're looking for some tools to experiment with, there's some nice free painting apps out there like Krita, Medibang, or Fire Alpaca. Yes, that's a real program. So once the concept is done, it's time to move on to design. Design is all about nailing down specifics and setting up rules for the characters and art style. Designing for animation is all about keeping things simple. You want to avoid complex patterns and gradients, keep to simple shapes, and in general keep things easy for the animation team to work with. Character designers will create something called a model sheet. You may have seen one before. It's a document that shows a character from all sorts of different angles. They include details like color palettes as well as rules on a character's movements and facial expressions. This is also where the terms on and off model come from. If the animation is not accurate to the model sheet, it is considered off model and may need to be redone. If you enjoy designing characters, then maybe you could get into design. Next, let's move on to storyboarding. A storyboard is a shot-for-shot sketch of your animation. Think of it like a rough comic book version of your animation before it actually gets animated. Storyboard artists don't tend to go into much detail with their art. Instead, they focus on things like camera angles and shot composition. Once the storyboards have been finalized, it's time to create an animatic. An animatic is basically an animated version of the storyboard. This serves as the basis for the animation's timing, and as such may include things like voice acting and sound effects. If you're a fan of doodling sketches and have a good understanding of cinematography and timing, then this role could be for you. The app Storyboarder is great for creating both storyboards and animatics if you wanted to give it a try yourself. And now let's talk about animation. The animation process is usually split into two main phases: the rough and the cleanup. The rough animation is produced by one or more lead animators. Their job is to lay out the foundation of the animation, using the model sheet as a character reference, and the animatic as a reference for the scene's layout and timing. Cleanup animators are tasked with refining the rough animation. This involves things like creating clean line art, colouring, and shading, but is a lot more involved than that might sound, as cleanup artists are responsible for the final look of the animation. If animation strikes your fancy, there are some tools you can use to experiment. For mobile devices, there's FlipperClip, or if you have a computer, there's OpenToons, Tahoma 2D, and Blender. Now before we go any further, let's talk about background art. It's easy to understate the importance of backgrounds in animation. They are essential for creating the mood and setting the atmosphere of a scene. There are some things to keep in mind when creating backgrounds for animation. Some backgrounds need to be split into different layers or to extend beyond the bounds of the screen in case of camera movements. It's also important to refer back to the storyboard to make sure the perspective and composition are correct. Background art is perfect for those who enjoy drawing scenery and have a good understanding of lighting and colouring. And last but not least, let's talk about editing. Editing is important in all forms of video media, not just animation. It's the phase where all the animations, backgrounds, and sounds are put together through the use of an editing software. So not all the jobs in the animation industry are about art and drawing. If you want to try video editing, you can use DaVinci Resolve for free, or for a more expensive option, there's Adobe Premiere. Anyway, those are all the jobs I wanted to talk about in this video. There's obviously a lot goes into animation. At the very least, I hope I've given you some insight into some new skills you can practice or software you can fiddle with. If you have any questions or some ideas for other topics we can cover, maybe leave a suggestion in the comments section. Anyway, that's all from me, and happy animating.